Good afternoon. Welcome back to another edition of the Vinyl Vault. I am Parker.
I am Tony.
And today we are talking about, Tony, I talked to you about this album probably, a week ago, maybe a week and a half ago. We had a little history behind me finding it. I was in Osage Beach for the Missouri Broadcasters Association, and so we went thrift shopping because we had some time to kill before we had to get ready and everything. So we went to this thrift shop in Camdenton and found this album. It's Supertramp's Breakfast in America. Found it for $3. And immediately when I got home, put it on the table and fell in love with it. I came in and worked the next day. I said, Tony, we have to talk about this album. So just a little history about the album itself. It is from Supertramp, the English rock band. It is the sixth album by this group. It was released in 1979. Ironically, it was recorded in Los Angeles, and I'll talk about that irony in a second. But some notable highlights: I believe it won 2 Grammys, one for Best Album Package and Best Engineered Non-Classical Recording. Also did receive some nominees. Now, Tony, I have put this album in the back of your head for over a week now. What was your first reaction?
I knew of Supertramp and knew that they had a lot of songs that I should know, just didn't know the title of. And so it was sort of a surprise of me going in and just listening to the album and like, do I know this song? Do I know this song? And sure enough, yeah, there was at least 2 that I knew here, and was also expecting other Supertramp songs to be on here, and it wasn't the case. That being said, I did fall in love with the album as well. I found it to be at first like, oh, this is like almost like a jam band, because they kind of have a longer parts of just instrumentals and things like that. And maybe that's the whole vibe of the album, the whole the band in general. But it's a combination of just more straightforward. Let's get to the point of the singing, but also taking the time to musically express themselves. I found myself enjoying, I think, more so the first side than the second. However, I think my favorite song out of the album comes from the second side, and we'll get to that when we get to it.
Yeah, and kind of talking about kind of a jam band, a little more history about this. So this is, like I said, the 6th album. It came after what was it called? Even in the Quietest Moments, which I think had a couple hits for them. This one's just jam packed, in my opinion, and actually. It comes before their Paris live album, which I have that one, but obviously they didn't perform all of their hits in that Paris album. So when I saw this, I knew the significance of this album within the career of the band, and I knew I had to have it. But so these songs are all written by 2 members of the band, Rick Davis, and Roger Hogston, I think I pronounced that right. But the thing is, they wrote them separately. So if you look at the writing credits, it just they almost alternate. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the research that I found, basically, they wanted to write an album that was almost like an intimate conversation between 2 friends. And I say 2 friends. It says, the article I have here says, the original concept was for an album of songs about the relationship and conflicting ideals between the 2 writers themselves, and it was supposed to be called Hello Stranger, which, looking back, it was, 1979 when this came out. It's been 44 years, if I'm doing my math correctly on that. Mm-hmm. Kind of makes you wonder what, does the album name kind of bring a little bit of the uniqueness to it if it was just called Hello Stranger? I don't know. And then later on they realized that, I want to quote the article correctly. It says here, the idea was eventually scrapped in favor of more fun songs, which you kind of mentioned when you kind of get the vibe of that jam band. They're obviously having some fun there. And what I found interesting is if you listen to a lot of the lyrics in certain songs, it kind of sounds like a English band's interpretation of America in the late 70s. And that theory I had was somewhat backed up by this research. It said, due to the title and the satire of American culture on the cover of the album itself, and then 3 songs specifically, Gone Hollywood, Breakfast in America, and Child of Vision. It says many listeners interpreted the album as kind of like a farce of the United States as a whole in the 70s, and they swear that was not their idea, and they've actually been accused of, I wouldn't want to say accused, there's been interpretations that this was a concept album, and I don't get that vibe. I get a lot of the vibe that this was just some people having fun. There's, and I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like bands, when they're kind of at the peak of their career, they have a lot more leeway to just make whatever they want. There's not a lot of pressure to come out, with a top 10 hit with your next album. And I think Toto was kind of in that situation. They had come out with their first album. They had all these hits, Georgie Porgy, Hold the Line. And then they kind of messed around for a couple albums, and they weren't doing so well. And then eventually they struck gold on Toto 4. But this is an example of Supertramp just having fun. And I think that's well documented. I don't know. Did you get that same vibe?
Yeah, definitely. I think it was definitely an exploration of just the thoughts of each of the members writing their own songs, and some of it has some correlations to each other, which I think fits the album as a whole. Choosing these songs and everything, and you definitely get the vibe of like, not only can we be all jammy, we can also be very, very emotionally driven, or just like talking about something that's more melancholy, or something like that. A lot of variety. However, if you know Supertramp for in a particular sound, you'll get it once or twice in the album, and then you get a variety of other things, and and it's all still very, very solid. So I think you just grow to appreciate the choices that they made throughout the album.
Well, and I do want to talk about the track listing here. You mentioned side 1 was a much better side for you than side 2. And this album has what I would argue is probably one of the greatest 3-track runs in musical history. I'm not going to say it's the best. I haven't listened to every album out there. But the fact that track 2 through 4 is the logical song, Goodbye Stranger, and then Breakfast in America, I mean, that's just a great 3-song run. Now, I do believe the best 4 or 5 song run is probably in Thriller, but we may cross that bridge when we get there.
Maybe.
But yeah, the first, if you look at the first side, you've got Gone Hollywood, which is, I was listening to it this morning. It's kind of it's written kind of from the perspective of somebody, I don't want to say warning, but like, people go out to Hollywood, they try to make it big, they try to become stars, but like, hey, just, maybe the grass isn't always greener on the other side, which I do think kind of leans towards that idea that this was kind of a satirical a commentary on America, because there was a huge rush in that time to, get to Hollywood and become famous and all that. And then you have the logical song, which this album has a couple songs that I find interesting. I always find it interesting whenever there's a song and they never say the title of the song in the song. And so unless I'm completely mistaken, and I've listened to this song a lot, I don't think they ever say the logical song in this song. No. But that one's also just another commentary on, society and acting in society. I think they say, watch what you say, because they'll be calling you radical. And so it's another commentary on, how to move, how to operate in an era that was so many years ago. How did you interpret Goodbye Stranger?
I think it was just a song about, somebody who enjoys being on the road, or either somebody who doesn't like to commit to one place or one person, and just being very upfront about it, of like, this is my life, like, take it or leave it, but like, I'm telling you, this is this is what I'm all about and everything. And that being said, considering he name drops two people, two women there, I can only assume that it does have some conversation about I don't know, two different women, or that he might be seeing at the same time, or I don't know if that might be a family member or something like that, of just like, saying, hey, yeah, I'm not sticking around. But overall, yeah, to me, the song was, about a person who just, doesn't want to settle down, or wants to be at one place, and wants to travel, and wants to, take in as much as they can within the lifetime that they have.
So yeah, I got the vibe of kind of a, for lack of a better phrase, kind of a one night stand. Mm-hmm. Which kind of leads into, kind of your theory about, being on the road. I think the names that he drops are Mary, and then I want to say Jane, which you can interpret that however which way you do.
Yeah.
So maybe it means more than that. I don't know, but yeah, it definitely, it's definitely. I think the first verse is early morning yesterday was up before the dawn. And then, he's talking about having to say goodbye to this person, and the bridge before it comes back into a second verse, he says a king without a castle, which I can only interpret as somebody who doesn't have their own place. They're always on the move. And so I think that song's pretty well written. I don't know if that's how you feel about it as well, but I think that's you go ahead.
Yeah, I was about to say, I'd say that it's pretty well written, as one of the top hits that they had. And I recently rewatched The Office, and they do a reference to that song there. So it was kind of a nice surprise and coincidence that, while watching it, I'm like, oh, hey, Supertramp.
I'm surprised more shows. I know I'm 900% sure that this song was featured in I, Tonya, the movie with Margot Robbie about Tonya Harding. Mm-hmm. But I'm surprised this song isn't mentioned or used more in like series finales. Because the word stranger kind of contradicts it, but I mean, it's a message about saying bye to something.
Yeah.
I feel like if multimedia was a thing in 1979, this would have been in so many like slideshows and montages. But I did want to mention this. I took a note this morning about how. Do you remember that meme when the Popeyes chicken sandwiches came out, and there was a meme of this worker just like slumped over, sitting on a bench, and just so tired and exhausted because everybody was just flooding these Popeyes restaurants wanting these chicken sandwiches? Please tell me you at least.
I am trying to picture it, but I'm just picturing Keanu Reeves eating a sandwich.
It's the thing I thought of, because like this album, I feel like almost abuses the keyboards.
Oh yeah.
Every song on this album has either a subtle keyboard or a subtle organ, or just straight up just hits you out the gate and says like, we are using the keyboard. Do not ask us any questions. Do not have any objections. You bought the album. Deal with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely a very prevalent instrument that's used there, and I wonder if it's something that I mean, it's got to be because they wrote their songs, and it's it's there. It's the like Wurlitzer electric piano, I believe.
I hear the term Rhodes a lot. I don't know. I'm sure somebody will let us know, but I think it's a type of like electronic keyboard that had that very 70s. I mean, yacht rock definitely used a lot of electric keyboard.
Yeah.
Also, track one, going backwards a little bit, the Gone Hollywood. I love a very tasteful saxophone solo.
Yeah.
And Gone Hollywood has it, and then some. And so if you love saxophone solos, that's a good song to check out. And then we get to track 4, Breakfast in America. And that's another one. They talk about eating breakfast, but it's definitely not a breakfast item that is from America. I think he says something about like, can we have like crimps or something?
Yeah.
Which Maybe that's the thing. I don't know. But it's kind of like an English take on America. They say it's a coincidence. I do think that they were kind of writing what they interpret America to be. But a lot of people from our generation may recognize this song because of Gym Class Heroes. And I think it was maybe 2005, 2006, Gym Class Heroes. And I think the guy from Fall Out Boy, I think the lead singer of Fall Out Boy. It was, what song? I'm going to have to look it up. But it was pretty much their only hit, other than the one with Adam Levine, the Stereo Hearts one. Cupid's Chokehold. That's what it was called. And maybe it didn't have Fall Out Boy. I don't know. Anyway, so that was probably one of the most recent samples of that song. And so a lot of people, whereas Gym Class Heroes, their version of it was about how they were in love with a woman, and Cupid's Chokehold, the title makes it pretty clear. But how did you interpret the song?
So I upon the first listen, I thought it was just somebody talking about America and just the American dream, or the concepts of what America promises. As a foreigner going in, you have these expectations of, America has the most beautiful women, beautiful landscapes, and, structures, and, whatever, and like putting it on a pedestal and everything like that. And I think it, I would eventually look up to see, what the song was about. And sure enough, it was written by one of them when they were young, and being a child and looking at like, oh wow, like America is a place I need to go because it has all these things. And I'm sure there's more, metaphors and things in there, but I think if you just possibly read it as it is, of just an observation of the excitement that America has if you are from a different country, that there's a lot of interest in it, and and maybe that helps build the storyline of this album, of like going back to like Gone Hollywood and being there and trying to live that dream, and struggling very, very hard. That being said, at the end of Gone Hollywood, the last verse does, he says that, he's the talk of the boulevard and everything like that. He's in, a fancy car. So it seems like the hard work and everything has worked out. And if it's a true story of, the actual people here, then yeah, Supertramp obviously made a big enough impact to hit America and, fulfilled the prophecy that the young child was thinking of in Breakfast in America.
The one thing I can't seem to understand, and maybe you have an answer based on your research, was, they say, take a look at my girlfriend. She's the only one I got. And then he says, take a look at my girlfriend. I never seem to get a lot. He never addresses what he is wanting from this girlfriend. I also don't know if the girlfriend is a person in this instance, and maybe, how they say your country is your motherland, or we call boats she, I wonder if maybe he's referring to his country as, take a look at my girlfriend. She's the only one I got, and I don't seem to get anything from it. But like, look at this country in the distance.
Yeah.
This one's much better, but that is a impromptu interpretation of the song now that I'm talking about it. But that kind of along the lines?
Well, I can tell you from personal experience, having gone to England before, that there was a lot of conversations that I had with some college age guys that I met that they were so excited to see to speak to me and my cousin that I went on the trip with, because it's the first time they ever met Americans, and they were just like, oh, America has like the best shows, and like has like do you know Beyonce, like those like conversations, like it's so because America one of their major exports is, like movies and just general pop culture and everything like that. Like that's what they're known for. And so, I mean, on the flip side, I was preparing for the England trip and watched a lot of, English television from, The Office to, a bunch of their sitcoms and things like that. And like Sherlock was really big at that time too. And I was like, no, you guys have like, amazing, actors and like everyone who plays, an American hero like Superman or, whatever. They're all British. They're all, English. And so, I think it's a matter of probably the grass is always greener, you just, it's what you don't have that, you might be a little bit more envious of. And I think ultimately that's probably what they're trying to say here.
So I want to get to at least 2 more songs.
Sure.
And if you want to address any, feel free to. I feel like the bulk of the hits are on side A, like you had mentioned, but there's 2 songs on side B that I really want to get to. The first one is Take the Long Way Home. And if you like harmonicas, boy howdy, this song I think has more harmonica than any other instrument, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And so I was listening to it again on my way into work, and the first minute of that song is just this build up with some strings, and then this harmonica riff just comes in out of left field and just really sets this tone, and you almost feel I feel almost, it's weird, I feel relaxed, but then I also feel like we've talked about it before, that kind of stank face coming on. But it has, I was telling somebody about this, the best part of this entire album for me, the best part is in this song when they go from the bridge into the second verse and they've already built the momentum with the instruments. Mm-hmm. And then the way that the melody and the lyrics just seem to just fit like a perfect thing. I can't describe it, but every time I hear it, it might be one of the best moments for me, at least, listening to a lot of this music since we've started this series. I can't describe it. I don't know. I don't know if you feel the same way. I don't know if our viewers will feel the same way, but really pay attention to the transition from the first bridge into the second verse. And then they kind of do the same thing in the latter half of the song with a harmonica just ringing off the hook going into the verse. But it's one of those songs where you just kind of move your head back and forth. Mm-hmm. And it's just a vibe. I don't know. Did you like it? Did you interpret it anyway?
Yeah. I enjoyed it. I think more so for the choice of rhythm in the melody for the verses in particularly. You can tell that they really enjoy doing like prog rock, more intricate rhythms, and you can feel that whenever like it's sprinkled out throughout the entire album of like, oh, that's an interesting choice to, instead of starting on the downbeat, doing it on like a 3 or something like that, or the end of 3, and so that was very interesting to me, and then the actual subject matter of the lyrics and everything of taking the long way home, which, at one point in my life, I was definitely, in my interpretation of the lyrics is, not wanting to go home, of staying in your car just a little bit longer, before the walk inside. And maybe that's just depression, but, and especially whenever I would take the long way home, it would just be like, oh, I'm just prolonging, either I'm really enjoying the ride, what's going on outside of it where I don't want to go home, or it's, trying to avoid what's to come at home. And I just thought that was like, oh yeah, like I definitely felt that. And so that's what I really appreciate about that song.
Just for clarification, we chuckle a little bit. We do not find depression funny in any sense of the word, in case anybody interprets it that way. Unless you do. I don't know.
Oh, it's hilarious.
No, oh my god, no. Yeah, no, I feel the same way about that song because he says people see what they want to see, and that's kind of a reflection of what you were saying is that you can kind of build this front and kind of have people perceive you as what you want them, but like at the end of the day, like are you going straight home or are you purposely stalling? It's one of those. It's kind of like Foster the People. They wrote a really happy sounding song, but the lyrics are a different story. And so, some people may not be paying attention. They may just hear the melody and the harmonica. There is a subtle organ in that song that I really love too. But it's all how you interpret it. And I think that's one of the best things that we've done with this series. That it's not only has opened up our eyes and ears to other kinds of sounds and eras, but also taking a listen to the lyrics and knowing that this isn't just some manufactured pop song. It's somebody sat down with a notebook and wrote these things out, and it's their feelings, it's their emotions. The only other song I wanted to talk about, no offense to track 7, 8, or 9, but the last one I wanted to talk about, if you want to talk about any, we can, is Child of Vision. And I think that's one where it's very hard to accept that it's a coincidence that it's not a commentary on America. One of the lyrics that sticks out to me is they talk about, you're poisoning your body, you're poisoning your mind. You watch your television, not because it's good, but it's because they tell you that you should. And so I think that's a kind of a commentary back in that era. People were glued to their televisions. They didn't have iPhones or social media. If they wanted any sense of entertainment, it came through an electronic box with sound.
Yeah.
And you can interpret the poisoning in the mind or the body based on the food at the time. I think fast food was very much booming at that time, and it kind of you saw that a shift from the traditional, home cooked meal every night. And then obviously there were a lot of concerns about, what people were putting in their bodies because of those different options. But then also you go look at the TV situation, they say, and this might be more of the accurate interpretation, but you remember the stereotypes. They'd say like, oh, you watch that TV, you'll go blind, or you'll lose your mind, or all this stuff. But it's by far the longest song on this album.
Yeah.
And if you love dudes just vibing, this is the song. It's probably about 2.5 of the 7.5 minutes is actual lyrics and song. And then the last 5 minutes is just, it's a piano solo accompanied by the band. And it's another one of those move your head back and forth.
Yeah.
Move your head back and forth. Do it. Move your head back and forth. It's good stuff.
Trying to jam to our air conditioning that's happening.
We can't legally play it, but I can still listen to it in here. But is that the kind of, how did you take it?
So this is sort of the fun part of doing this, and the interpretation is that I did not picture that at all. I felt that Casual Conversations, the track before that, leads into Child of Vision, where I'm pretty sure they're just talking about each other, the two singers, and they're just jabbing at each other or just talking about their frustrations with each other of two very different people who grew up in very different ways and different lifestyles as well, and just the issues that you have with whether it's like a brother, a teammate, a bandmate, a close friend, of just like, this is how you make me feel. This is why we can't get things done. This is why, it takes forever to get stuff done because, you have this in particular, you're stubborn, you're, what have you. And to me, the last two songs is, because it is written by, the two different people of like, one is like Casual Conversations is like, I don't like talking to you. I don't like having casual conversations with you, like, let's just get this done. And, sometimes you drive me crazy and I just have to leave. And then Child of Vision, to me was just like, oh yeah, you're this amazing, talent. You do all these things, and yet you're not as great as you think you are. And so, yeah, that was my interpretation of it.
It should be worth noting, to go along with what you were saying in the research that I have here. There's a reference to an article of a journalist named Harry Dotery talking about the band, and the quote from his story is, quote, "In 3 days with the band, I don't think I saw Davies or Hodgson converse once other than to exchange courteous greetings." So,
yeah, I mean, I definitely felt that with the side two of everything, because I think even take the long way home. I mean, you can interpret it as home, as your own home, but it's also like, to me, music, especially when you're creating music, that's when you're most vulnerable. That's when you're, everything like that. And if you're sharing that with another, like a partner, and you're avoiding going to the studio with the bandmate that drives you crazy and stuff, I'm gonna be a couple hours late to this rehearsal, and I don't want to show up if I don't have to.
I wonder if you could also interpret it as their career arc, knowing, maybe foreshadowing that, if we continue to have these disagreements, we're gonna flame out and we're gonna be back in England before you know it. And that is, unfortunately, a long way home.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, eventually they would split. They'd still do a few albums afterwards, but yeah, I mean, that it was definitely brewing. And I feel like that's exactly what, in my interpretation of the last two songs were all about, which I thought it was just hilarious to to make an album, seemingly all happy, fun, and everything like that, but underlined behind a, like, I hate this guy.
And that's why we do the vinyl vault.
Yes, exactly.
The last thing I want to do, because we do have to wrap this up sooner than we normally would, is I want to talk about the album. The album cover itself. We do have the album with us. Look at that. And this it won a Grammy. The design of this album, front and back, won a Grammy. I believe it actually, it says here, beat albums by the Talking Heads and Led Zeppelin. So I just let you know that it's quite a prestigious honor. But let's talk about that album cover. Obviously, you've got a shot of New York City, and you have a woman. If you look at her name tag, you probably won't be able to get close enough. But if you Google it, you can zoom in. She has a name tag. This is Libby. She's obviously supposed to be the Statue of Liberty. And it looks like you're looking through an airplane window, kind of on the New York skyline. And obviously this was made in 1979. So there's so the Twin Towers are present. You can see, instead of a torch, she has a glass of orange juice. Instead of the tablet, it's a menu. I can hold it if you want to give us your interpretation.
Oh, please keep going.
And then one thing that you don't really think about it until you actually look at it. The entire city of New York is made of things you would find in a cafe. Between egg cartons, you can see salt and pepper shakers. This was probably one of the more creative designs for an album cover. How do you feel?
I think it's perfect for the album name. I mean, if it was called Hello Stranger, it'd be a completely different album cover. I think it's wonderful. And going into it, you're looking at the sleeves and everything like that. Like it's a menu. It's brilliantly put together. Honestly, yeah, the award definitely should have gone and did go to the right person, in my opinion.
Yeah, I try not to be a vinyl snob, but I do try to make sure that if I'm buying an album that it has the inner sleeve, because people may disagree with me. I feel like the inner sleeve is almost just as important as the outside of it, because you remember buying CDs. There was always the inner sleeve, and it had the lyrics, and it had little notes and photos and stuff. Well, they couldn't do that a lot with certain kind of vinyls unless they put something in between the flaps, but the inner sleeve kind of did that for them. And even the back, there's a photo of the band at a, I mean, I don't think it's a real diner, but they're at some sort of diner, and there's, Libby's serving them, and there's certain headlines on those newspapers that are somewhat grim. My favorite is, I'm going to try to use my pen. The gentleman in the sweater looks purplish. He's pouring sugar, but there's no coffee cup near him. So I don't know if that's a reference to, I don't know what it's a reference to, but definitely brings it home the fact that, the cafe style. It says, the article I've got here says the back cover photo depicting the band members having breakfast while reading their respective hometown newspapers. Oh, it says it was taken at a diner called Bert's Madhouse. So shout out Bert's Madhouse. If you're still in business, 54, 55 years, no, 46. I don't know math. I know music. I don't know math. But shout out to them.
Yeah. I mean, you pretty much said everything I was going to say about the album. I mean, it's
do you have a favorite part of it?
So, I mean, of the visuals, you mean?
Yes.
Honestly, the whole thing. You showed it to me moments before we got here, and my first interpretation, knowing the album cover already, was like, oh, that's already clever. But the sleeve I thought was really cool, of just seeing the lyrics and everything like that in menu styles. Like, oh, that's perfect. Like, no wonder, So yeah, I haven't had the time to actually look at all the headlines and everything. Looking forward to seeing it, because it seems like, yeah, there's a lot of little fun nods to things. Just quickly reading things through this, but yeah, I mean, I'm all about adding a little extra to the music, to the art, really, to enhance the experience.
Well, Tony, I'll give it to you. I think I've said everything I need to say. Sometimes I've talked too much. Is there any final thoughts you have on this?
You mentioned the stank face, and I did end up doing a stank face for "The Lord Is Mine," the chorus to that. There's just something about it that just builds to it, and every single time I'd hear it, I too would make the face and would also bob my head and everything like that. And the song isn't even like a super, I mean, it's not fun at all. I mean, it's to me a reflection of this person's life, and maybe talking about regrets and things like that. I think it's just a beautiful, beautiful song, and that's what really stood out to me, was just like, oh man, this is different than everything else on the album, and the subject matter, and again, like the choice of melodies and the rhythms and everything like that. Like, it really stood out to me, and it definitely made a playlist for me. So, all right, well, in the rotation. It's in the rotation. Yes. All right. Well, that's going to do it for us for this week's edition of Vinyl Vault. I'm Parker. I'm Tony. And if you have any suggestions for us or anything, let us know in the comments, and we'll be back next week with another edition of the Vinyl Vault.